welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today we're going to be doing a huge book unhaul. As I've talked about a couple times on my channel, my TBR got completely out of control in the past 2 years, especially in 2020. Once the pandemic started, I was just buying books like crazy and building up my TBR to this huge, insane level of books. Many of them I've read by now, many of them I have unhauled by now, and in the meantime, I've been adding even more books onto my shelves as new books come out that I'm really excited about. But I'm getting ready to move, and so it's really a great time to cull the shelves and just get rid of books that I truly don't think I'm going to be reading and send them off to a better home. Usually when I do this, I'll take a stack of books that I think I'm interested in unhauling, and I will read the first chapter of each of those books, and whichever ones I'm not interested in, I will unhaul, and if there's any that caught my attention, I will keep them on my shelves. But typically what ends up happening is even the ones that I keep, I still end up unhauling later and I never really get around to. But I want to do a mix of that today. I've got a stack of books that I know that I want to get rid of, and then I've got some that I'm uncertain about, that I don't know if I'm actually going to read them or not. I'm still sort of interested in them, but I'm not really sure, or maybe they're outside of my comfort zone, so I never feel like picking them up, but something in my mind tells me that maybe it could be a hidden gem for me, like a hidden 5-star that I end up loving. But ultimately, the longer I keep these books around, the more stressed out I get by having so many books on my shelves that I haven't read yet, and I feel like it limits me from buying new books that I'm more interested in, and then I just never know what to pick up when I'm reading. So it's really just a good exercise for clearing my mental health. Speaking of mental health, before we get started in the unhaul, I do want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, which is BetterHelp. If you're having challenges with your mental health, like feeling anxious, depressed, or stressed, BetterHelp could be a great option for you. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. They have a network of over 20,000 licensed therapists with a broad range of expertise, giving you access to help that may not be available in your area. You can talk to your therapist in a private online environment at your convenience. All you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Once you're matched with your therapist, you can schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. And if you find that your therapist isn't working for you, you can request a new therapist at no additional charge at any time. Join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Plus, you can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Ashley's Little Library, which you can see below. I'll also have a link at the top of my description box that you can click to try out that offer. So again, thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get into the unhaul. So first up, I pulled this very large stack of books that I know I'm not really interested in anymore at all. This was a mistake for sure. Ow. So I'll just go through these really quickly. These are books that I just know. I look at them and I have no interest in picking them up. I've heard bad reviews of them. My friends haven't liked them. I don't know why I bought it. Just, I will not be reading these books, so I feel good about just getting them off my shelves instead of trying to convince myself that maybe one day I will read them. First up, we have The Drowning Kind by Jennifer McMahon. I still have yet to read anything from Jennifer McMahon, and this is the second book of hers I own. I also have The Winter People, which I'm also going to consider getting rid of, but I do want to read the first chapter of that one. But this, I haven't heard people talk about it. I just don't really care. I only picked it up at a used bookstore because it was cheap and it was like a newer release at the time, but it also has this like library transparent covering thing. I don't know what you call this, like lamination, which I do not enjoy, and I doubt that I'm ever going to read this, so I feel fine letting this go. Next, we have Marion Lane and the Midnight Murder by T.A. Wilberg. This is a book that I have read the first chapter of before for an unhaul video, and I decided to keep it around, and I have not picked it up. It's one of the lowest rated books on my TBR according to Goodreads and like the average ratings, so I'm just probably not ever going to read it. I'm not really that interested. Next, we have True Crime Story by Joseph Knox. I actually got this from my mom's house. She got it in a creepy something subscription box thing that she does, and I thought I would probably read it before she did, but evidently that's not the case because I've had no interest to pick it up, so I will just give this one back to her. Next, we have A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I bought this back in 2020 when I was in a fantasy kick for a little bit. Not really in that anymore. There are more fantasy books sitting on my shelves, and there's a couple that I know I'm going to keep that I'm still interested in reading, but this one in particular, especially since it's a series and I'm not really a series kind of girl, I'm just not really that interested in it anymore, and if I'm going to pick up a fantasy book, I don't think this would be at the top of my list. Next up, we have The New Wilderness by Diane Cook. This is a book that I was really excited about when it came out. I thought I would really enjoy it, and even my friend Hannah from Hannah's Recent Reads picked it up because she heard me talking about it and thought it sounded really good, and when she read it, she didn't even really love it. I think she gave it like a 3-star, but she said it was super dense and super wordy, and ever since she read it and said that, I just really have not been interested in picking it up because I'm like, oh yeah, if Hannah thought it dragged, I'm probably gonna think it drags. And when I just look at it, it doesn't spark joy. So it's going in the unhaul pile. Next we have Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. This was an Illumicrate copy that I got back when I was still subscribed to Illumicrate. And I actually did start this book. I read the first 20 pages of it, which is not much, but I did like it, but I wasn't super invested or intrigued. I'm just not really in the mood for fantasy anymore. This feels very much like a fall book, so I was like, oh, maybe I should keep it around for the fall, but I just know there's no way I would read this fall anyway, so who am I kidding? Like, I'm not gonna pretend. I know I will not pick this book back up, and especially because it's a special edition, like there's probably someone out there who really would love to have this copy, so going to get it off my shelves since it's just gonna sit there collecting dust. Another Illumicrate copy I have is Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I know some of my friends have really enjoyed this book, but when I look at it, I just can't imagine myself actually reading it. So I'm gonna go ahead and unhaul it, especially because it's a special edition. It's a very gorgeous special edition. I'm sure there's someone who would be very happy to have this sitting on their shelves. Next up, a random book is Imitations by Zadie Smith. I got this for $4.95 at a used bookstore once. I knew it had something to do with the pandemic. It came out early in 2020, I think, like early after the pandemic hit. And it's super small, so I know I could read this in like less than an hour, I'm sure. But even knowing that, I've never been tempted to pick it up, so I might as well just unhaul it. Next up, we have The Diviners by Libba Bray. I know this is a well-loved fantasy book, but I'm just not that interested in reading it. I've heard that the last book in the series is really bad, so I especially don't want to like read this and get invested and then be upset when I could have saved myself all of that in the first place. I also feel like I don't know if I'm gonna like love this. So if it's not a 5-star potential in my mind, I might as well just unhaul. And then we also have The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodore Goss, a book I know a lot of people love, but I'm just not interested in it anymore. I should have read it when I was interested in it, when everyone was talking about it, and then I could have gotten in on the hype. But once the moment has passed, I just don't really care anymore. And it's a series, and I don't want to read a long series. The other books in this series are super long, so I'm just gonna go ahead and unhaul it. Next we have The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. Heard terrible reviews of this one. I bought it like right when it came out because I thought the cover was really pretty and it sounded kind of cool and dystopian, but I've heard it's really heavy on the science part of the sci-fi, kind of confusing, and I just haven't heard a single good review, so I've had no interest in picking this up in the 2 years that I've owned it, so going to unhaul. Next we have Dear Syntheron by Akweke Emezi. I picked this up just a couple months ago at a bargain store, and I picked it up because I've read from Akweke Emezi twice before. I enjoy their writing, but I'm just not the biggest like literary type reader anymore. This is a memoir actually, but I just know their writing style. I'm expecting this to also be a heavy book just based off of what I know about them, and I'm sure it's gonna be a great book, and so that's why I got it, and that's why I leave it sitting around, because I'm like, oh, I know that's gonna be like a literary masterpiece. But with my reading mood right now, I just want to read a cheesy thriller or a gory horror novella or something fun most of the time, and so I don't really see myself picking this one up. Similarly, we have Life Undercover by Amaryllis Fox, which is another memoir. This is about this woman who was coming of age in the CIA, as the subtitle says. I used to be a huge memoir reader. I'm just really not anymore. I was interested in this book for many years, but I just don't really see myself picking it up. If I wanted to, I'd probably do an audiobook. And then I also have Trick Mirror by Gia Tolentino, which is a nonfiction book that is about reflections on self-delusion. I picked this one up from Book of the Month a long time ago, and it has sat on my shelves for years, so I don't think I'm gonna end up getting into it. Next, I want to talk about books that I've heard overwhelming bad reviews for, and so when I see them sitting on my shelves, I'm like, ooh, I have no interest in that anymore because it just sounds bad if all these people aren't liking it. But I'm not quite ready to let them go. I do want to try them out a little bit, and we have a decent sized stack here as well. So first we have Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead. This is the first romance book that has come out from this author. She has written thriller books before, same author as In My Dream I Hold a Knife, which came out in 2021, and The Last Housewife, which is coming out in 2022. Haven't heard really a good review for this one yet, and it's also interesting that it's a romance book from a thriller author, so I don't know, I'm a little hesitant for this one. Then we have Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I always struggle to find this author's name since it's like hidden in the house. Mixed reviews for this one. I've heard some positive, I've heard some negative. Don't really know if it's gonna be my thing. It sounds interesting. It's about these 4 authors going to this haunted house, and then I think it's like a slasher. I'm not really sure, but I'm just like unsure if I would want to pick it up or not. not. The Invisible Husband of Frick Island by Colleen Oakley. This was a book I was really excited about. I thought it sounded really cute and I had never heard anyone talk about it. And then my friend Gwen from the channel Gwendolyn Kensinger read this one and she didn't really like it. And so I was like, darn, I'm probably not gonna like it either because we tend to align pretty well. Then we have A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This one has been overwhelmingly negative reviews. It's definitely one of the lowest rated books on my TBR. It's supposed to be a weirder book, so that is pretty common that weirder books get lower ratings. But I'm like, what if I'm the one person who ends up really loving it? I don't want to sleep on it because I was really interested in it when it first came out. Then we have Hummingbird Salamander by Jeff Vandermeer, another book that I haven't heard my friends necessarily talking about, but on the internet I've just generally seen pretty bad reviews for this one. It's one of the lowest rated books on my TBR. It's a sci-fi thriller that I was super intrigued by, but I've never read from this author before, so I don't really know what to expect, but the overwhelming bad reviews make me nervous about it. Then we have Dream Girl by Laura Lippman, another author I've never read from before. This is like a suspenseful type story that I think the reviews say that it's pretty boring. Again, it's one of the lowest rated books on my TBR. Don't really know about it. Then we have Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty. I kind of know what to expect with Liane Moriarty's writing. Maybe other people didn't, and that's why they thought it was a boring kind of thriller if they were expecting a thriller when she writes more slow burn mysteries, but it's also really long, and so I don't know. I just haven't been super excited about it since I started seeing reviews about it. Also, the premise of this one sounds really similar to Not a Happy Family by Shara Lapina, which I didn't really enjoy either. And then finally we have Group by Christy Tate, which is I believe a memoir. It's at least a nonfiction about a group therapy class. When this came out, there was a lot of controversy around the author for some reason. I don't really remember why, but that made me sort of hesitant to pick it up. And then, yeah, it's just kind of been sitting around on my shelves for a while. So I want to give all of these at least a little bit of a chance. So I'm going to try to read the first chapter of all of these, but even if in the first couple of pages I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to force myself to read the whole first chapter since I'm already kind of considering unhauling these. So I'm going to do that and then I'll let you know how that goes. So I just sampled all of these books and I'm only deciding to save one of them. Can you guess which one it is? I'll tell you which ones it isn't. Fool Me ones, I don't think I'm gonna be that interested in. There's a lot of political stuff going on in here, just with like the characters being involved in politics. And I haven't loved an Ashley Winstead book yet. I'm 0 for 2, so I don't think this one would be it. Don't think it's gonna be worth my time. Kill Creek, super wordy. Wasn't really expecting that. Thought it was gonna be kind of like quick, witty, fast-paced, but it was just very like the history of the house and super wordy and dense, and I was already falling asleep in the first couple of pages. The Invisible Husband of Frick Island, I actually was enjoying this one. I skimmed through the first 30 pages. Like I read the first couple pages and then skimmed through to see kind of how the story goes. But it sort of feels familiar. It doesn't really feel like anything new. It just feels like another kind of island summary, heartfelt type story. Also, there was a lot from the perspective of this journalist who's coming to the island, and I thought we were going to get more perspective from the woman who believes her dead husband is still with her, which is who I'm more interested in. So I just wasn't like, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was going to bring anything exciting enough for me to really feel like I was going to pick this one back up. Hummingbird Salamander actually started pretty interesting. The first line of this one is assume I'm dead by the time you read this, and the beginning is in second person, which I find pretty intriguing, but it also is kind of like confusing a little bit to read, which is fine in the beginning. Sometimes that happens. So I wanted to look at reviews of this one on Goodreads to see what people don't love about this one, and a lot of people are saying the whole time it's really confusing. You're left in the dark a lot with the main character and what's even actually happening in the story, and I've read a sci-fi thriller that was like that before and I didn't like it. So I'm gonna trust the internet on this one. Not gonna be reading this one. Dream Girl, I kind of forgot what this one was supposed to be about, but you start by following this 60-something-year-old man who is in bed. He has nurses caring for him, and he's kind of in and out of this dreamlike state. What ends up happening is he's an author, and he gets a phone call from this person that's saying that she's like the real character from his book, and then no one's believing him about it. He's like in and out of the dreamlike state. He thinks it may be someone who he's wronged in the past, like he's got a couple ex-wives. I don't know. I looked at reviews for this one too. People said it really reads a lot like Misery, which I haven't read Misery misery yet, so that wouldn't be a problem for me, I guess. People also had a lot of complaints about this main character, this man, being really annoying to have to read from. And yeah, I don't particularly think I would love to read from the perspective of a 60-something-year-old man. And I feel like a lot of it's gonna feel like this really dreamy type thing, which I don't know if I would love. So gonna unhaul this one. Group, there wasn't really necessarily anything wrong with this. I just don't see myself reading it. You're following this 26-year-old woman who has just got out of law school and like everything in her life looks perfect, but she wants to die. And then she starts doing group therapy and that's supposed to help her. I'm sure it's probably gonna be like relatable in a way, but also probably comes from a pretty privileged place. And I just don't know if this is like going to be a super innovative mental health type of story that I get something unique from. I don't know. It just didn't feel like something I was really interested in. Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty. I didn't even get past the first page. I just am not interested anymore. And then the one that I'm gonna keep is A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This one was actually really interesting. So the concept of this book is there's this couple who is obsessed with this woman named Jen that the guy in the couple used to work with. They're just obsessed with her for some reason. They look at her social media pictures and the book begins with them making a joke about if the woman should print out a picture of Jen's face to tape to her own when they're having sex, which is like super weird. And it really just intrigued me what happens in the story. Like the plot is that they're obsessed with Jen, but Jen doesn't know that. And Jen actually then invites them to go out to this island with her. And then it becomes what the blurb says is a part millennial social comedy, part psychedelic horror, and all wildly entertaining. And I actually just think this one could be pretty interesting. So I'm gonna keep this one around. I do see myself reading this one by the end of the year. So this one is the one that survived. Stack. This huge stack of books that I just pulled from my shelves is just books that I look at and I think, I don't know. It's like the next tier of books that I've kind of lost interest in. I don't know if I'll like them. It would probably take me a long time to get to them because I just have no desire to really read them right now, just based off of the reading mood that I'm in or how I think I would like these or not like these books. And some of these I feel like I could read just the first couple of lines and know if I like them or not, or were interested in them or not anymore. So I think that's what I'm gonna do with this absolutely ginormous stack of books, is just kind of vibe check them. And these will actually go through together because I think that'll be relatively quick. First, we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I know this is well loved, but I'm not the biggest fantasy girly. We've got a couple of maps in here at the beginning. I think this is a list of characters here at the beginning as well, which is not a good sign for me. Part 1, Shadow Business. Chapter 1 is from the perspective of a character named Juiced, and the first sentence is, Juiced had two problems, the moon and his mustache. Kind of interesting first sentence. I don't know who Juiced is. I have seen the Shadow and Bone show, but I haven't read the books. This is a long chapter. And then chapter 2 is from Inej. I do know who that is. The book is, oh my god, 500 pages long. And I know people really love this, but I just don't really see myself reading it. So I think this one's gonna be an unhaul. See, I told you this would be quick. Next we have Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This is kind of like a classic thriller that a lot of people talk about, or maybe like a suspense mystery book. I don't know if it's necessarily a thriller, but after I hauled this, people were telling me they don't think I'm going to like it since it's about an abusive man, and I haven't been loving that. So let's see, the first chapter starts in the present, and the first sentence is, the champagne bottle knocks against the marble kitchen counter, making me jump. Glance at Jack, hoping he won't have noticed how nervous I am. He catches me looking and smiles. Perfect, he says softly. Ooh, yeah. Okay, I'm getting the vibes here that I wouldn't love that. Seeing things about a perfect example of a woman who has it all, the perfect house, the perfect husband, the perfect life. Don't love the vibes of a woman being terrified of her husband, which I believe is the whole point of this one. I've always just kind of thought this one must have a really good plot twist in it, which is why people talk about it so much, but I don't even know if that's really the case and if it would even be that exciting. And then you go to the past, which jumps back to 18 months ago, the day Jack danced with Millie in the park, which I think is her, younger sister who has Down syndrome. I don't know. I feel like I could still give this one a chance. I have read from B.A. Paris before, and I did like the one thing that I read from them. Let me check out the synopsis really quick. It's also under 300 pages, so it's not too long. I feel like I might keep this one around because I'm definitely still interested in why people love this so much. I feel like this is one I could try to read, and if I got like halfway through and didn't like the husband vibes, I could just DNF it at that point, but I think I'm gonna keep this one. Next we have The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. I've had this one for a long time. I just never pick it up. It starts with an Emily Dickinson poem, and chapter 1 is called Monsters, and the first sentence says, most people believe the human brain is solid. Not a super great first line. Also, sorry if I sound super nasally and congested. It's because I am super nasally and congested. My allergies are so bad right now, and I can just like hear how stuffed up I sound, but gotta film when you gotta film, you know? Let's see, so this is a coming of age story about a group of kids who investigate local ghost stories and urban legends together, set in the 1980s. I feel like this book had its moment where it was talked about a lot, but I don't really hear it talked about anymore, and I don't really see myself picking this one up. I feel like this is a summer read, and I can't see myself reading this in the next 3 months, so that means I won't get to it this summer. Then we'd be a whole nother year, and then I'll have owned this book for like 3 years without reading it, so I think I'm okay to unhaul this one. This is quick, but I'm looking down and I do have so many more books to go through, so I think I'm just gonna time-lapse you through these as I'm doing the first sentences and reading the initial little bit of it, and then I'll let you know which ones I decide to unhaul and which I decide to keep. I got through all of those books, and there's a lot that I'm unhauling, but there's a couple that I'm keeping, so we'll go through the ones I'm unhauling first. We have Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This one just sounded too fantasy for me. Don't think I'm gonna be interested in it anymore. Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips. I think this is one that I've read the first chapter of before for one of these, and it's just been left around. I go back and forth on this because it has a couple stickers on the cover that it's been an award winner, but I don't really hear people talk about it much, especially people whose taste I typically align with. It just didn't quickly pull me in. It's about sisters who go missing, I think, or one of them goes missing, or their parents go missing, and then there's like a crime investigation into that. Fly Away by Kathleen Jennings. I've owned this for a long time. It's supposed to be kind of like gothic, but it's set in Australia and it's during the daylight, because that's part of the synopsis, is that gothic delights and uncanny family horror can live and even thrive under a burning sun. The tone of this one seems kind of quirky, and it's got little illustrations in it, and I feel like maybe I could like it, but it didn't pull me in quickly enough to make me want to keep it around. Then we have A Marvelous Light by Freya Marski. This is a fantasy that came out recently in the past year or so. Again, just didn't pull me in super quickly, and I think it's gonna be a little bit too fantasy for me. A Stranger on the Beach by Michelle Campbell. This one I was going back and forth on because it kind of seems interesting. It starts with a stranger showing up on the beach in this ominous tone of, I would have never introduced myself to him if I had known how things were gonna go. So I looked at reviews on Goodreads to see if there's any like outstanding reviews, and I actually saw that Gabby didn't like this one, and she said it's just really similar to every other thriller. It's pretty basic, and I'm trying to unhaul the basic books. We're only keeping the unique, cool things around. So this one I'm unhauling. Then we have The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. I know a lot of people like this one, but I don't know. It's like historical, it's like emotional. I just don't think this is really my thing anymore. Then we have Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sugimura. Again, just didn't pull me in super quickly. I think it's gonna be a lighter read. Doesn't really seem like what I'm gonna be in the mood for. Then we have Take Me Apart by Sarah Sliger. I've held on to this one for a very long time. It's a mystery story that I don't really hear many people talking about. I've done it in these triad chapters before, and so I didn't even pick it up again because I already know what the story is, and I just still haven't picked it up, so I'm gonna go ahead and unhaul this one. Then we have Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. Hannah, if you're watching, cover your ears. But I just don't know. I just don't know if this one's gonna be for me, and I don't see myself picking this up even in like the next 6 to 12 months. So if I ever do decide I want to read this again, I'll just pick up a bargain copy again somewhere else. And I know Hannah really wants me to start with Assassin's Blade anyway instead of Throne of Glass, so it's all for the best. And then finally we have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I just have no interest in this anymore. So from that stack, these are the books that I will be keeping. We have Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. Prosper's Demon by KJ Parker, Loveless by Alice Oseman, which I didn't think I was going to be interested in anymore, but especially since I've been loving Heartstopper lately, I really just love Alice Oseman's writing, and I do think I'm going to have a good, cozy time with this one. The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. This is a book that I'm kind of surprised survived this, but I had this conception in my mind of what I thought this book was going to feel like, what I thought Jennifer McMahon's writing style was going to be like. I expected it to be very dry and boring, but I actually really liked the tone of this one in the first couple of pages, so I'm actually excited to keep this one and actually read it, and hopefully I actually enjoy it. Then we have Dig by A.S. King. This is one I was kind of going back and forth on as well, but I saw it has really good reviews from a lot of people whose reviews I trust on Goodreads, so I'm going to keep this one around. And then finally we have The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I was also going back and forth on this one, but again went to Goodreads and saw that it has pretty solid reviews from a lot of my friends. I don't feel like I hear people talking about this one a lot when it comes to Christina Lauren's books, but apparently this one is pretty good, and I have really liked stuff from Christina Lauren in the past, so I'm still gonna give this one a try. So I have pretty much destroyed my bookshelves, as you can see. These two shelves that are down here are books that I have already read, so these aren't even TBR books except for like 2 or 3 books that are on this shelf. So really just those top shelves now are just my TBR. And then there's a shelf a little bit higher that you can't quite see in frame, but I've really whittled my TBR down quite a bit, which is what I was really hoping to do. I know this is like a little bit extreme and it's a huge unhaul, but I really wanted to do that before moving so that moving can be easier with having less books. And also genuinely, this is so much better for my mental health. Like it literally is so much better for my mental health to have fewer books on my TBR that I know I can get through. And then I really lately have just been wanting to like pick up books as soon as I hear about them and get excited about them, even backlist books. And I feel like I can't do that when I have so many books sitting on my TBR. So really whittling this down and getting to a point that I really want to get to, which is having like no more than 10 to 15 unread books at any given time, feels so much more achievable now, having whittled down so many of these books. I just counted and I'm unhauling 33 books, which is so crazy. That is like over 2 full months of reading worth of books for me, because I typically read like 13 to 15-ish books in a month. So honestly, that'd probably be more like 2.5 to 3 months of reading that I just saved myself on books that I'm probably not going to enjoy anyways. So it is super exciting. I feel so refreshed. I feel like I've got a clean slate. It's gonna be so great to move into the new house with fresh bookshelves and to really be able to knock out my TBR even quicker now. And I would call that a success. I would say let me know down in the comments below how you feel about my unhaul, if there's any books that you wish I would have kept, but I don't want to have any regrets. So just don't let me know. If I let go of a book that you think I'm really gonna like, it's okay, we're moving on, fresh slate, we'll find other great books in the future, I'm sure. But if you do want to leave an emoji down in the comments below to let me know that you got to the end of the video, you can leave the trash can emoji, which I like to use for unhauls. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.